Here's a guide for central defenders, with all the tactical skills and decisions. We have so much to cover and you know it's important, so I will not waste your time with a story about my grandpa and how he always dreamed about defending the penalty box at Wembley. It's a good story, but we simply don't have the time. We have put marks of multiple topics we will discuss in the video, so jump ahead if you know what you need to see. Centerbacks play at the last line of defense, either in a 3 or 4 defenders line structure. We will start with their role in defending, as that is their primary focus. When playing defense against the player with the ball, we can delay, dictate, or deny. We delay because we assume that our teammates know what they are doing, but just need a bit of time to position themselves well. We dictate the player with the ball on their weaker foot or position ourselves to block passes towards the center of the field. Finally, we deny opportunity to score, and we also challenge the player to get the ball if we know that we have cover. Depending on which one of the 3 roles we are playing, we would position ourselves differently. But how do you choose which mode you should operate in? It keeps changing, based on the soccer context. If we are playing a high-pressing game as a team, your job is to quickly apply pressure on the ball, dictate the play to limit opportunities to pass or dribble, and quickly challenge for the ball. However, if you are the last player on defense, you will start by delaying the opponent. The distance to the opponent when delaying outside of the penalty area is around the distance at which you can barely fist bump. If you need to put pressure and challenge, or if you need to deny shooting opportunity, then you come closer. If you are further than that, you are not really defending them. It becomes more complex when it comes to marking players without the ball. Basic principle says that we should keep things compact. If the ball is closer to us, we stay closer to the opponent. If the ball is further from us, we stay further from them, but ideally in the line of passing, or at least we anticipate a pass at any point. Also, we want to position ourselves closer to our goal than our opponent. However, we cannot just go all the way back, because we want to use the offside line as a barrier to keep things compact. As we always want to have numerical advantage, we should have one extra defender, usually a centerback. It used to be that always one of them was this extra defender, often called libero or sweeper. These days we usually play in a flat back 4, and that role keeps alternating between the 2 centerbacks. The real question is, how do we adjust for being offset by what is happening in the game? For example, if the wingback lost their duel or is late for covering the winger, then the centerback needs to cover for them, but the wingback needs to go back and cover for the centerback. They will switch roles. What happens if the defensive midfielder lost their duel? The centerback needs to step out and cover by delaying and dictating. The other defenders come closer to close that gap. Finally, the special role by the centerbacks on defense is that they are holding the offside line. We will not get into details about the offside trap. Take a look at the deep dive video we have made about it with all tricks on how to create and avoid one. Now that we covered defending, let's look at playing from the back. When we play in a 3-player defense, I like the goalkeeper to form a back 4 with the other 3 defenders. Usually that means that there are 2 central midfielders, and the goal of the center back is to play safe to them and to the wide players. If the opponents are having a high press, then the passes are often going past the first line. It is actually risky to play such high press as a whole team because a long pass forward is always an option, so what we see often is that our wide defenders are pinned down, but our wide midfielders are much more free to go. In a 4-player defense, we still want to involve the goalkeeper, but in a more central position. The 2 wingbacks push a little bit higher, which means our wingers also push higher. This is a great opportunity to find players behind the lines, but also in the half spaces. The midfielders and the winger will need to keep creating spaces where a longer pass on the ground can happen, and the centerback must be able to execute that pass with the right weight. Not every centerback can give a long pass to the attackers. However, at the highest level, that is not just desired, but expected. The secret to it is to see the whole field. Most players see only where the players are and not the space behind them. If the opponent plays with a high line, you have to exploit that space with long passes, The defenders often have a bit more time to set themselves for this long pass and then time it just right to avoid offside traps. Finally, sometimes there is a long kick either by the keeper or by a fellow defender. You have to step out fast and anticipate the second ball. That is when there is a header in the after a long kick. It is hard for players to control the ball at that point, especially with an opponent also trying to get it. It is up to you to give the option for a one-touch pass or pick up the badly controlled ball. Also, if everybody steps out fast, usually the high-pressing opponent is tired and takes their time to come back onside, and you stepping up technically takes them out of the game. Assuming we are past the half-point line and the opponent has regrouped in a low or mid-block. What we usually see then is forming a 3-2-5 formation to attack with many different variations. We will go through several of them. In the traditional way, one of the fullbacks push higher when the ball is on their side while the other fullback stays back and the players stretch into a back three line. We start with a 4-2-3-1 formation, so it is not hard to switch to 3-2-5. If we start from a 4-3-3, then we often see that the fullback inverts to the middle to pair up with the holding midfielder. It is unlikely that both fullbacks are good at playing that role, so it is often a predetermined decision about which fullback inverts. We did a deep dive on the inverted fullback role, check it out. What we have seen in the last few years is that sometimes the centerback inverts into that role. Guardiola did that with John Stones in the last few years, but there are not that many other players capable of playing both as a centerback and midfielders. If we have both fullbacks being good at inverting, we have seen sometimes the holding midfielder dropping back while the inverted fullbacks coming as midfielders. However, we often see that if the goal is to attack much more, we get into a 2-3-5 formation where the holding midfielder doesn't really come back while the fullbacks either invert or just push higher. If we trust our center backs to deal with the striker, then we might want to attack more aggressively like this. I am often asked by my players why they get caught on counterattacks. Well, it is hard to defend against virtually infinite space. There are few tricks on how to handle this. One is to press early so that there will be a significant delay. If you can anticipate that a player is about to receive the ball and force them to turn their back to your goal, that's amazing. Alternatively, you can at least block them from making a forward run immediately. However, you have to be careful not to allow them to run past you while you run forward. If you can't stop them, then you might need to foul them to stop the attack. If you foul them when they have their back towards your goal, then it's just a foul. If you foul them while they try to pass you, it might be a yellow card. If they have passed you already and you are the last player on defense, then you should be given a red card. Therefore, if you are not sure that you cannot get into these situations to get a yellow or a red card, you might need to drop deeper, delay the opponent and trust that your teammates can help you. Finally, if the ball has been passed long behind you, it is your duty to sprint back. Also, even if you end up being the cover, you must assume that your teammate will not be able to handle it and you sprint back. In this case, the ball comes and you don't stay in line, hoping that it will work out. You run back to provide cover. Center backs are almost never the ones that sprint forward when transitioning to attack. However, that doesn't mean that they don't play a role. In fact, the primary role is to get the ball to safety. It can be dribble, or it can be a pass, ideally forward but often sideways or even backwards. As a center back, your counterattacking minds start working while you are on full defense. You should keep scanning the field and communicate with your teammates all the time. If your fullback has been in a 1v1 situation and has won their duel, you should have scanned the field even before you saw the outcome. As you are the option for a back pass to safety, ideally you will be able to find a quick pass forward behind the lines. Center backs are usually the tallest and strongest players on the team, together maybe with the striker and the goalkeeper. Because of that, they need to defend the hardest opponents, usually the tallest and the strongest ones. My advice for the defenders is to initiate contact without making a foul. The opponents would ideally want no contact, but when you defend you want to make it as hard as possible for anybody to control the ball. It is not that you have to get to the ball, but you must prevent the opponent to get to the ball easily before you. One special case when defending is to defend with offside traps. We did a deep dive on our offside trap video, so check it out. The most important thing is to figure out as a defending center back is to know if you are the follower or the leader of the offside trap. If you are the leader, you need to figure out the right time. If you are the follower, then you need to make sure that you step out together with your team, not too late to mess up the offside trap. Attacking set pieces is interesting, too. Center backs often join the team for attacking set pieces in the penalty box. Before we get into how to make the most of it, don't forget that you need to coordinate to make sure that the defense is covered and we don't get hit on the counter-attack. Usually the fullbacks and one of the midfielders will do that, as they have the pace to cover ground. The simple principle is that you have to get to the ball before the opponent and ideally with some distance from them. For this, I usually suggest to change the direction and pace. For example, if jogging from the semicircle towards the penalty spot, quickly change direction and sprint on the first post. You need only a tap in, but you have to get the ball. Attacking corner might look like a special case, and it is. Firstly, you don't have to worry about offside, so go ahead and be close to the goalkeeper. You might want to make sure you obstruct the vision and the movement without making a foul. If somebody else is doing that, then ideally your starting position is behind the visible area. If you start from the second post and make a run, it is very hard to get the timing right and defend you because they cannot see the ball and you at the same time. This was the tactical guide on how to play as a central defender. Hopefully you learned a lot from it and you understood the different roles you need to take depending on the context and the moment of the soccer game. Let us know in the comments what your strong sides are and where you need to improve on.